So in all the people that I've met who I've found incredibly likable and easy to get on with, they all seem to have a couple of the same traits in common that I've noticed. And these are traits which make them incredibly easy for me to talk to the point where I want to make an effort to carry on the conversation, to keep it going. They seem to make this person more memorable than other people, so that I'm almost looking forward to when I bump into them. And it's also to the point where even when they're not in the room, myself and other people are talking about them and saying nice things about them behind their back. It's kind of a strong feeling, like this person has made a strong impression on me. And I would describe these set of traits that I've observed in other people, if I could like put one label on them, I'd say these people have an adventurer's mindset. So they look at life as an adventure, as something to be explored. And not only that, but when it comes to how they feel about other people, they look at everyone as having something interesting about them, something which they want to discover and find out more about. So in this video, I'm going to go through the 3 traits of an adventurer's mindset and how maybe we can use them for ourselves to become more likable to other people. So the first trait of the adventurer's mindset is having curiosity. So you know how in like films and media, the adventurers are always depicted as having this like fascination for new places, like exploring, traveling to some like far away and unfamiliar land, whether it's to find treasure or some kind of like hidden secret, or even just like learn about the local customs, the local traditions. They have this curiosity. They have this like natural desire to learn and like this thirst for new information. Now, I actually think one of the most likable traits anyone can have, and I'm going to explain why, is having that thirst for information, that curiosity about people, treating every single new person that you meet as having some kind of like secret or something inherently interesting about them. It's just on you to go on that journey of finding out what that is. So a really great example of this is one of my best friends from work called Billy. And Billy is a really, really interesting kind of case of this because he's someone who I was only a few weeks into working at this company, but I'd already heard so much about him before I'd even met him. Like, he was someone who people would speak about with such admiration for. Like, they tell me, "Oh my God, you should meet Billy. He's so friendly. He's another young guy like you. You know, everyone really gets on with him." And I kind of had like quite high expectations for meeting this person because, you know, like sometimes you're not sure if people are exaggerating, but we ended up working together for 6 months and he became one of my closest friends. And within like a couple of days, I knew that there was a reason he had this effect on people. The only way I could describe Billy is he's someone who just seems to know everyone. Like, I get into work and I just see this guy in the corridor having a conversation with someone who I'd never seen before. In all of our meetings, with all these separate teams all over the building, he always seemed to just know everyone and like he'd be bantering and asking them about their weekends. And it wasn't even just that, like it became ridiculous after a while. This even still happens sometimes, like we're walking into town on our lunch break to grab a sandwich and we're getting stopped every 2 minutes by someone who he knows. Like it's kind of annoying, like, and I shit you not, it's everyone from like the old lady on the street to some big 6'5" looking tough guy with like tattoos on his face. Like he just has that like friendliness with everyone. And what I realized is so much of this is down to the fact that he is a naturally curious person. He wants to know more about other people. He likes to like collect these small little details about people and then kind of recall them, like show people that he's paying attention. So I had this with him. One of our first ever conversations was weirdly about these, I don't know if anyone's from the UK watching this, but these like match attacks cards. So they're these little like Premier League footballer trading cards that I used to mess around with when I was like 8 years old. And we were talking about match attacks and he was like, yeah, I've got a bunch of them at home. And later on, we ended up swapping numbers, and he didn't text me for about like 3 weeks. But just out of the blue, I checked my phone one Friday evening, and I see he's like sent me a picture of one of his match attacks cards. And it might sound like something small, but it just felt really sincere. Like he'd remembered that from one of our first conversations together. And, it's kind of like, I think even small things like that can make you feel really special. Because he's someone who I can see that he has like this level of friendliness with everyone in the organization. But that almost makes his attention and the fact that he remembered something like that make me feel like special and important. And I think if you're the if you're the type of person who does that, who can remember these small little details and bring them up to people, who wants to like take an interest in other people, it's like if you do that, you'll actually have a friend for life. Like they'll win your admiration forever. Curiosity like really is just one of the best traits you can lead with. So the second trait of the adventurer's mindset is collecting stories. So I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but for me, one of the most like likable and magnetic things a person can do is tell a good story. Like I feel like it could be the most boring topic in the world. It could be about physics or, I don't know, bird watching, something like that. But if someone is able to kind of dress it up into a story, I could happily sit there and listen to like a YouTube video on bird watching for 2 hours if it's in a story. So an example of this is the show Parts Unknown by Anthony Bourdain, who was like this celebrity chef. And I've been really getting into this show recently. And it's kind of the premise of it is him going to like all these faraway places, sometimes dangerous, sometimes places you've never heard of before, and going and trying the food, learning about like the local culture, things like that. But really what's kind of interesting about it, and maybe I didn't expect to find this interesting, is it's not this like big exploration of a country. He's not going to all these famous landmarks or this and this. There's no crazy stories involved. But it's all about the ordinary moments. Like an episode might just be him just sitting around in some like dusty local restaurant, like eating noodles or like drinking beers with some local people. But the show isn't even really about like food. It's it's about people. It's about observing people, talking about like their lifestyles, their history, the things they've been through, like really coming at it from like an angle of empathy and also kind of adding his own like perspective on top of that, like how he feels about certain things. And I think my main takeaway from watching this show is that the best stories don't have to be about big moments, experiences that you can go home and brag about, things that no one else would have done before. It's about the small moments. Sometimes the best stories that I've heard kind of take place in the most like ordinary settings. I think everyone has this belief that to tell amazing stories, you need to have lived an amazing life or had all these crazy life experiences. But actually, that's not it. It's first of all the skill of being able to notice stories in everyday moments, to be able to kind of collect those stories. But it also comes down to the emotion. People don't care about the experience itself. What makes a story good is how you felt about it. It's how it made you feel, the emotions you felt. And that's what can make these like tiny little stories into something really memorable. So there's actually a book that talks about this called Storyworthy. And I found it really helpful for my YouTube because it's all about kind of documenting one small moment from your life every day and how you felt about that moment. And I've been able to turn these like small life experiences into videos. Like, for example, I made this video a little while ago about like, I'm just like making coffee at my work in the cafeteria. and I turn around and I see the girl that I've got a crush on, and I'm like all nervous, and I'm talking about like the social anxiety and the emotions that I felt. Like, we're able to create really good stories just out of talking about the emotional experience of it. So where the adventurous mindset comes in is the most likable people, the people who tell the best stories. They're not focused on these grand experiences. It's all about noticing the small everyday moments that normally passes by. So the third trait of the adventurous mindset is enjoying the journey rather than the destination. So I'm actually going to use an example for this point that I used in a very recent video, which was the video I made on why Irish people are so likable. So go and watch that if you're still interested in this topic of becoming more likable. But the example I want to use is my friend Danny from Dublin, who I met whilst on my own adventures, solo traveling in Prague right before Christmas. And I could actually talk for hours about this guy and how likable he was. Like, he had such a big impression on me. How he treated me like a friend from day one, despite having no obligation to do that. How he was always laughing, always smiling, so content and happy and just carefree, just existing. Really never met anyone like this guy. But a great example of how I kind of look at Danny was his response to this question that I asked the group when we were all staying in this hostel together. And I asked, like, what's everyone going to do in future? Like, what are we all going to do after we finish traveling? And I told the group that I'm just going to go straight back into my 9 to 5 job. I'm just going to keep working. These two American kids talked about how we're going to go to college, we're going to do this, this, and this. A real range of answers from the group. But when it was Danny's turn, his answer kind of took me aback, because he just said in like the most relaxed, nonchalant way, but also kind of like a happy-go-lucky way. He just said, I don't really know yet, but I think I'm going to go and work in this Irish bar in Spain. And I still think about how he answered that question. Like, it brings up all these different emotions in me. On the one hand, it's fear. I think I'm projecting my own fear onto Danny. Maybe I'd be a little bit scared to give that type of answer. I'd be scared to let people know that maybe I don't really have any concrete plans, or I'm not showing ambition, that I might not be working a great job or earning the money I want to be. Maybe I'd be a bit afraid to share that with the group. But the other thing that kind of knocked me flat was just how okay he seemed about it. How content he seemed with that idea. Like, based on the way he said it, and I guess the time we'd spent together, what type of guy he was, I kind of knew that wherever he went in the world, whatever job he ended up doing, with whoever people, he'd be happy, he'd be content, and he'd end up landing on his own 2 feet. Because that was the thing about Danny. Like, I truly believe that even if he was completely on his own, he'd still find a way to have a good time, because that was his outlook on life in general and around other people. It was just all about appreciating the moment, enjoying the company of good people, and just enjoying the journey rather than thinking about any grand destination we're trying to get to. Enjoying and like cherishing right now. And it kind of made me self-reflect, like, how much have I been chasing a particular outcome, whether that's money or kind of status, how other people see me, views on YouTube, when maybe I should be asking myself, like, am I enjoying the day-to-day? Am I enjoying the journey to get to wherever those places may be? I think for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been very focused on like the grind, and it's made me feel like, or come across as like very serious, maybe like a bit morbid at times. And I've actually gone through maybe some of the most like isolating times of my life, where I felt very closed off from my friends and family, and that's only been my own doing. And I think maybe what I'm about to say is going against the common advice you see online, like you need to become rich in your 20s, or you need to sacrifice all of your social time in order to get to this particular goal. But I think what I've decided is I don't mind if it takes me longer to get where I'm trying to go. I want to spend time with people I like. I want to laugh. I want to experience new things, new places, new people, and, really enjoy the journey. And I think a side effect of that people don't talk about enough, of having this attitude towards life, is people do find you really likable. When you're authentically living and having fun, people take part in that as well. Like when you're smiling, when someone makes a joke and they're laughing, even if you don't fully understand it or you don't find it that funny, you kind of just feel like smiling. You kind of feel like taking part. The people who have this outlook on life, just enjoy the moment and have fun, those are some of the most likable people I've ever met, people like Danny. So those are the 3 traits of the adventurer's mindset. Before I close out the video, I am actually offering free coaching for any particular social skills problem or challenge you may be experiencing. Completely free, very low stakes. I'm just here to listen and see if I can help. So that'll be all from me, and I'll see you in the next one.